And then complete the perfect square trinomial. Take half of negative 9 and then square it. So
Fat Math, the right path to develop the fat brain that you've got. Hello everyone and welcome to Fat Math TV.
in this video, we will be solving quadratic equations by completing the square. Example number 1. Solve by completing the square. X squared plus 8x equals negative 15. So this is a quadratic equation. So what you're going to do is you will complete the square. What square are we referring to in this lesson? It's the square. It's a perfect square trinomial. So we will make this x squared plus 8x a perfect square trinomial. So we will add another term. So what makes this x squared plus 8x a perfect square trinomial? So what are you going to do to choose for the constant term? So just add. You have to take half of the middle term. This one is going to be the middle term. Half of 8. And then you square it. So take half of 8 and then square it. So half of 8 is 4, and 4 squared is 16. So you will add 16 to both sides of the equation. Of course, if you add 16 to the left, you have to add 16 to the right to to have an equivalent equation to the original. Okay, after that, what are you going to do? You have to factor the left side of the equation. So this is now x squared plus 8x plus 16 is now a perfect square trinomial, wherein if you will factor this, the factors are x plus 4 and x plus 4. So it's a perfect square trinomial. It's the square of x plus 4. So you have to apply your factoring technique here. It's also a special product, the square of a binomial. And then negative 15 plus 16 is 1. And then after that, after completing the square, you will apply the techniques or the lesson that you learned in solving quadratic equations by extracting square roots. So you have to take square root of both sides of the equation. So square root of x squared plus 4 is x plus 4. Square root of 1 is positive or negative 1. And then you can add negative 4 to both sides of the equation. You will get x equals negative 4 plus or minus 1. And then you can separate these two into x equals negative 4 minus 1, or the other one is negative 4 plus 1. Negative 4 minus 1 is negative 5, and negative 4 plus 1 is negative 3. If you want to check if your answer is correct, just plug these numbers to the original equation. Negative 5 squared, that's positive 25. 25 minus, plus 8 times negative 5. So this is going to be 25. 8 times negative 5, that's negative 40. 25 minus 40 is indeed negative 15. So this is correct. How about negative 3? If x is negative 3, this is 9. And then 8 times negative 3 is negative 24. So 9 minus 24 is indeed negative 15. So this answer is correct. So that's how you solve a quadratic equation by completing the square. So again, the first step is for you to separate the constant term. You have to put it to the right side. And then you will have only two terms here, the quadratic term and the linear term on the left side of the equation, and you have to add something to complete the perfect square trinomial. And the choice of what to add is you get half of the middle term, half of this, and then square it. And of course, after that, you will factor and apply the solving techniques by using extracting the square root. Example number 2. X squared plus 4x minus 12 equals 0. First, put the constant term to the right side of the equation. You will have x squared plus 4x equals 12. And then choose what to add to the left side so that it's going to be a perfect square trinomial. You get half of 4 and then square it. Half of 4 is 2. Square of 2 is 4. So you have to add 4 to both sides of the equation. And then factor x squared plus 4x plus 4. That is x plus 2 squared. So that's going to be easy because this is always a perfect square trinomial. Just take the square root of x. So of x squared of the first term here. The square root of x squared is x. And the square root of 4 is 2. So you will have, if it's plus here, it's also plus here. If it's minus, it's also minus. Okay, 12 plus 4 is 16. Take the square root of both sides. You will get x plus 2 equals positive or negative 4. Square root of 16 is 4. And then add negative 2 to both sides of the equation. You will get x equals negative 2 plus or minus 4. And then separate these into two equations. You will have x equals negative 2 minus 4 or x equals negative 2 plus 4. For the first one, we have x equals negative 6. For the second one, we have x equals positive 2. And then if you will replace x equals negative 6 and x equals 2 to the original equation, you will get a 0 equals 0. Well, let's see if indeed it's the same. Negative 6 squared is 36. 4 times negative 6, that is negative 24. Minus 12. Is this 0? 36 minus 24 is 12. 12 minus 12 is 0, so correct. So this is also correct. How about if x is 2? 2 squared. 2 squared is 4. Plus 4 times 2 is 8. Minus 12. 4 plus 8 is 12. Minus 12 is 0. Yes. So correct. So that is how you check if your answer is correct. Just replace the values to the original equation and check if you will have an identity or you will have, true statement. Example number 3, solve by completing the square. X squared plus 24 equals negative 11x. So first is you have to put the quadratic and the linear terms on the left side and a constant term on the right. So it's going to be x squared plus 11x equals negative 24. You have to put this negative 11x to the left and 24 to the right. And then complete the perfect square trinomial. So take half of 11, and then square it. So you can just have 121 over 4. That's the square of 11 halves. And then factor the left side. You will get x squared equals x squared plus 11 halves squared. The square root of this is 11 halves. It's plus here, so it's also plus here. Or if you don't want to take the square root of this, you can just take half of this. Half of 11 is 11 halves. And then squared equals negative 24 plus 121 over 4. So your skill in adding fractions or adding rational numbers will also be used here. So take the least common denominator. This is a whole number, so denominator is 1. So 1 and 4, you will get 4. And then find the equivalent fraction of negative 24 with denominator 4. So it's just 4 divided by 1. That's 4 times 24. That's 96. And then negative 96 over 4 plus 121. That is 25. So x plus 11 over 2 squared equals 25 fourths. And then take the square root of both sides. You will get x plus 11 halves equals square root of 25 fourths is 5 halves. So you will have positive or negative 5 halves. And add negative 11 halves to both sides of the equation. You will get x equals negative 11 halves plus or minus 5 halves. Separate this into two equations. You will have x equals negative 11 halves minus 5 halves, or x equals negative 11 halves plus 5 halves. For the first one, we have negative 16 over 2. For the second one, negative 6 over 2. And then that is x equals negative 8 or x equals negative 3. If you'll replace these values to the original equation, you will get a true mathematical statement. Let's check. Negative 8 squared is 64. 64 plus 24 is 88. And then negative 11 times negative 8 is also 88. So they are equal. So meaning to say, this is correct. How about if x is negative 3? Negative 3 squared is 9 plus 24. 9 plus 24 is 33. And then negative 11 times negative 3 is also 33. So correct. Example number 4. Solve by completing the square. X squared minus 9x equals 10. So put 10 to the right side of the equation. You will get x squared minus 9x equals 10. And then complete the perfect square trinomial. Take half of negative 9 and then square it. So half of negative 9 squared is 81 fourths. So plus 81 fourths to both sides of the equation. And then factor the left side. And then find the least common denominator for the right side. So, and then find the equivalent fraction of 10 such that the denominator is 4. So that's 40 over 4. Or if you want, you can just, the denominator is here is 1. So if you choose the denominator 4, then 4 divided by 1 is 4 times 10, that is 40. That's why we have 40 here. And then take the square root of this. That's x minus 9 halves. Simplify first the right side. You will have 121 over 4. And then take the square root. X minus 9 halves is the square root of 121 over 4 is 11 halves. And then add 9 halves to both sides of the equation. Separate this into two equations. And then simplify. 9 minus 11 is negative 2. 9 plus 11 is 20. And then simplify. Negative 2 over 2 is negative 1. 20 over 2 is 10. To check if your answer is correct, just replace these values to the original equation. 1 squared is a negative 1 squared is positive 1. Negative 9 times negative 1 is positive 9 minus 10. This is 10 minus 10 is 0, which is equal to 0. So correct. How about if x is 10? So if this is 10, this is if x is 10, x squared is 100 minus 9 times 10 is 90 minus 10. 100 minus 90 minus 10 is indeed 0. So correct. It's also 0. So this one is correct. So if you get an answer that is not equal to the right side here, of course your answer is wrong. For example, you got an x equals 1. 1 squared is 1 minus 9 times 1 is 9. That's negative 8. Negative 8 minus 10 is negative 18, which is not equal to 0, meaning to say the x equals 1 is not a correct answer. Example number 5. Solve by completing the square. X squared minus 2x minus 4 equals 0. So first, put a negative 4 to the right and then complete the square. Half of negative 2 squared, that is negative 1 squared, that is 1. So add 1 to both sides of the equation. Factor the left side of the equation. That's going to be x minus 1 squared. And then 4 plus 1 is 5. Take the square root of both sides and then add 1 to both sides. And then separate that into 2. So that is x equals 1 minus square root of 5, or x equals 1 plus square root of 5. So we still have two answers here. And this time it's irrational. So it's a bit more difficult to check if our answer is correct. But if you want to check if your answer is correct, just square this, just plug this in the original equation and check if you will have a true mathematical statement. Example number 6, solve by completing the square. X squared plus 4x plus 8 equals 0. So add negative 8 to both sides of the equation. Complete the perfect square trinomial. Half of 4 squared, that is also 4. So add 4 to both sides, you will get, factor the left side, you will have x plus 2 squared equals negative 8 plus 4 is negative 4. Take the square root of both sides, you will get x plus 2 equals plus or minus square root of negative 4. But that is not a real number. So in this case, we don't have a real solution. But square root of negative 1 is I, so you can have it as positive or negative 2i. And then add negative 2 to both sides of the equation, you will get x equals negative 2 plus or minus 2i, and separate that into two equations. And you cannot further simplify that. So your answer will be x equals negative 2 minus 2i, or x equals negative 2 plus 2i. But of course, if this is a given, you can just say that there are no real roots or there are no real solutions. Number 7, solve by completing the square. 5x squared plus 2x minus 3 equals 0. As what you can see here, we already have a coefficient not equal to 1 for the quadratic term. So we have a 5 there with x squared. So what are we going to do? You can just divide all of them or divide both sides of the equation by 5. So 5x squared divided by 5, that's x squared. 2x divided by 5, that's 2x over 5 or 2/5 x. And then 3 divided by 5 is 3/5. And then complete the perfect square trinomial. Same, take half of 2/5. Half of 2/5 is 2/5 divided by 2, or simply 1/2 times 2/5, so that you can cancel here. So 2/5 divided by 2 is 1/5. 1/5 squared is 1/25. So add 1 over 25 to both sides of the equation. Factor the left side and simplify the right side. 3/5 plus 1 over 25, find the least common denominator. So the least common denominator, since we have 5 and 25, there is 25. So 25 divided by 5 is 5 times 3, that's 15. Then just copy this one. And then for this one here, the square root of x is x squared is x. Square root of 1 over 25 is 1/5. So we have here x plus 1/5 squared. And then simplify the right side. You will get 15 plus 1, that's 16. So we have x plus 1/5 squared equals 16 over 25. Take the square root. You will get x plus 1/5 equals positive or negative. Square root of 16 over 25 is 4/5. Add negative 1/5 to both sides of the equation. You will get x equals negative 1/5 plus or minus 4/5. Separate that into two equations and then simplify. So x equals negative 1/5 minus 4/5. So that is negative 5/5. For the right side, if you will simplify, that's negative 1. For the other one, you have negative 1/5 plus 4/5, that's positive 3/5. So the two answers are negative 1 and 3/5. So just don't forget that if you have a number here, you can divide immediately by that number, both sides of the equation, so that the coefficient here is 1. There's also one way that you can just factor out first 5 here and then complete the square inside. But then after that, you still need to divide by 5 in the last part of the process. So for me, I choose this step that you divide immediately by the numerical coefficient of x squared. Okay, let us have our last example for this lesson. Solve by completing the square. 4x squared minus 4x plus 1 equals 0. Same step. Put the constant term to the right side. Divide both sides by 4. You will get 4x squared divided by 4 is x squared. Negative 4x divided by 4 is negative x. Negative 1 divided by 4 is negative 1/4. And complete the perfect square trinomial. Here, the coefficient of x is 1, or negative 1. So negative 1 divided by 2, and then square that. So that is positive 1/4. So positive 1/4, add that to both sides of the equation, and then factor. The factors of x squared minus x plus 1/4 is x minus 1/2 times x minus 1/2. So that's x minus 1/2 squared equals negative 1/4 plus 1/4 is 0. So take the square root of both sides. X minus 1/2 equals 0. Just 0. And then add 1/2 to both sides of the equation. So you will get x equals 1/2. So we only have one answer here. That's x equals 1/2. Okay, for you to check your competency here in solving quadratic equations by completing the square, answer the following items. Number 1, x squared minus 2x minus 35 equals 0. Number 2, x squared plus 7x minus 18 equals 0. Number 3, 2x squared plus x minus 10 equals 0. Number 4, x squared plus 6x plus 10 equals 0. And number 5, x squared minus 8x plus 16 equals 0. So thank you for watching this video. Please support Fatma TV by subscribing and watching the videos. You can also share and comment your questions or suggestions to improve our videos. Let us check. If you're not ready yet, pause the video. Number 1, negative 5 or 7. Number 2, negative 9 or 2. Negative 5 halves or 2. In number 4, we don't have real solutions or real roots. So if you want to really know the answer, the complex solution, that is negative 3 minus I or negative 3 plus I. Number 5, x equals 4. Did you get 5? Congratulations if you got 5. Some more. Let us have practice number 2 for those who want more exercises. But if you don't want any more, then thank you for watching. Okay, pause the video if you want to answer this. Okay, here are the answers. Number 1, negative 6 or 4. Number 2, 1 or 10. Number 3, negative 1/3 or positive 3 halves. Number 4, no real solutions. But if you want to identify the complex solutions, these are 2 minus 4i and 2 plus 4i. And number 5, negative 7 halves. So that's it for solving quadratic equations by completing the square. Thank you for watching. Thank you for watching. Comment, like, and subscribe. Bye!